This house, cloaked in rumors and secrets, stood as a monument to forgotten horrors. Illuminated only by the pale moonlight, each shadow seemed alive, and every whisper of the wind felt like a sentence. Allison's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear her own footsteps. Allison felt the cold penetrate her skin as she saw shadows dance across the walls, like ghostly witnesses of the past. An ominous whisper, echoing in the darkness, filled the rooms, not only with sound but also with the sensation of ancient evil. Suddenly she saw a gleam of light through a window deep in the house. Surprised, yet driven by an inner need to uncover this mystery, she decided to approach closer. However, her investigation was interrupted when a detective investigating the disappearance of a local resident emerged onto the street. His appearance was as sudden as the flickering of light in one of the windows, a light that shouldn't have been there.
"What are you doing here?"
The detective asked, approaching closer, his lantern slicing through the darkness like a sword.
"This house has been empty for decades."
Allison, surprised to see him, responded, "Pension."
"I'm looking for answers."
Her voice trembling like the echo in the ancient walls. She told the detective about the inheritance and the secrets she believed were hidden in this house. To her surprise, the detective did not laugh but instead listened intently to her words. When the detective turned his gaze to the window and saw a reflection there, his face turned pale.
"It should be empty here. But the light, it might be something important,"
he muttered uncertainly.
"My name is Theodore, Detective Theodore. I was told there was no one here, but something is shining inside. It might be those seeking the truth about this place,"
he said with a trembling voice, looking at Allison.
Possibly, but I decided to check it out personally, and yes, my name is Allison.
She replied, choosing to share her feelings with the detective. Despite the fear, they decided to explore the house together. Both were enveloped by the mysterious aura of the place, yet they did not back down. Who knows what they would find inside? But their common goal was clear: to uncover the mystery of the Grim Manor and tell the world about its secrets. Under the leadership of Allison and the detective, they wanted to enter the house, but the same enraged spirit they had seen broke a window, showering Theodore and Allison with a hail of shards, one of which lodged in the officer's leg, making it clear they were not welcome. Despite the pain, fear, and panic that enveloped them, they decided to enter and discover the truth at any cost. The old walls looked like witnesses to the many events that had occurred there, and every step echoed off the solid planks under their feet.
"Ah, such trifles, a mere scratch. If they want to scare us, they'll need something more serious,"
Theodore replied with a smile. The darkness of the gloomy house enveloped Allison and the detective like a dense fog. After they entered, the door behind them suddenly closed with a loud bang.
Did you hear that?
Allison asked. The detective whispered back.
"Yes, someone closed the door or something."
Suddenly, the light from the detective's lantern began to flicker, casting strange shadows on the walls. The shadows seemed to stretch and compress, like a living creature. The detective became nervous.
"Damn, this thing must be new."
During their exploration, they stumbled upon rooms filled with dust and forgotten items. The echoes of their steps reflected in the old voids, creating the impression that they were not alone. Suddenly, in a deep corner, Allison felt a cold touch on her shoulder. She screamed and turned around, illuminating the space with her flashlight, but saw only walls covered with bloody traces.
We are not alone,
she whispered, while the detective, trying to remain calm, prepared for the worst.
Look, there on the wall. Is that a face?
Before the detective could answer, a woman's voice filled with pain moaned from the darkness. Allison shuddered, and the detective directed the light toward the sound. For a moment, the figure of a woman appeared in the light of the flashlight, but when the light touched that spot again, there was no one there. Allison asked in fright,
Did you see her? She was there, I'm sure of it.
The detective, trying to remain calm, replied,
"Visions. This house is playing with us. We need to keep moving."
They continued their investigation, and in each room they encountered new eerie phenomena. In one room, they found an antique mirror covered with dust. When Allison ran her hand over the surface to clear the dust, she saw in the reflection a man in period clothing standing right behind her. She turned around abruptly, but there was no one there.
Detective, I saw him. In the mirror, he was standing right behind me.
Allison exclaimed excitedly. Theodore, after inspecting the room, responded,
Allison, there's no one here. Mirrors sometimes show more than we'd like to see.
As they continued moving, they came across a wall that seemed ordinary at first. But as they approached closer, they noticed that the stone surface was covered with blood that flowed down like a river from the dark, unexplored depths. Severely frightened and confused, they continued walking, their hearts beating faster, but they did not slow down. As they walked towards the basement, the steps creaked under their feet. Suddenly, as they approached the basement door, a cold gust of wind swept through the corridor, and a loud scream made them freeze in place.
That was a scream. Someone's down there.
We need to find out what's in there.
Theodore responded as he opened the door. Together they opened the door and entered the room, twisting their instant fears. What would they find there, in that basement where light exploded like a call to unveil secrets? That remained a mystery, but they were ready to face any challenges that the gloomy house might throw at them. The door to the basement, like the final chord in a symphony of horror, awaited them. The darkness of the basement enveloped them, and in that darkness the whispers became louder, as if calling them to themselves. Theodore turned on his flashlight. Strange hieroglyphs began to flicker on the walls from the light.
This already seems like madness.
The detective said anxiously, not showing fear in his voice.
Something's wrong. I feel we are not alone.
Allison responded, listening to the strange whispers that sounded next to her in the darkness. The girl felt someone from the darkness touch her shoulders, causing her to scream and quickly turn the light in that direction. But she saw only a bloodied wall in front of her.
It's blood. It must be a warning.
Yes, and it's fresh. Someone else is here in the basement.
They exclaimed as their words were suddenly interrupted by a loud scream from a far dark corner, causing their hearts to freeze from fear. Something, or someone, was there in that darkness, and they were not alone.
We must get out of here now.
Allison said, looking into the darkness. The detective took her hand.
Let's go. We need to get out of here while we can.
Suddenly their words were interrupted by a loud scream from around the corner. Something, or someone, was there in that darkness, and they were not alone.
Who's there?
Shouted the detective, holding the flashlight with a trembling hand. But their question remained unanswered, except for the barely audible whispers that sounded like a scream from another world. As soon as they stopped talking, the whispering ceased, but instead they heard that someone was walking in the rooms above them, causing their hands to tremble more and more.
Maybe we'd better leave.
Allison said, feeling unwelcome there.
You're right.
Agreed the detective. With every step they took, the shadows grew darker and the whispering louder, as if someone was coming to meet them from the darkness. They found themselves in a labyrinth of dark corridors that seemed endless. A scream tore through the silence, and their hearts froze. In that dark depth, they realized that they had awakened something that would have been better left undisturbed.
This is still part of that curse,
shouted the detective, trembling with fear. If you liked the story, subscribe and like to hear the next part, and many other Nightmare Chronicles.